I discovered my husband's betrayal on an ordinary Tuesday morning while he was at a business conference in Miami. The truth arrived in the form of an overdraft notice from our bank, something that should have been impossible given the $387,000 that had been sitting in our joint savings account just days before. There must be some mistake, I told the stone-faced bank manager as he showed me the transaction history on his computer screen. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. No mistake, Mrs. Vega, he replied, turning the monitor so I could see more clearly. The funds were transferred last Friday to an account at First Caribbean Bank. Your husband authorized it with his credentials and security questions. The systematic withdrawals had started 3 months ago, small at first, then increasingly larger sums, culminating in the final transfer that had emptied our account entirely. 15 years of marriage, of careful saving and planning, gone. In a digital instant. Would you like to contact him? The manager asked, his eyes reflecting a mixture of pity and discomfort. That won't be necessary, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. I know exactly where he is. I'd never actually suspected Robert of cheating, which now seemed like a stunning failure of intuition. The signs had been there: late nights, unexplained weekends away, a sudden obsession with fitness and clothing, classic cliches I'd been too trusting to recognize. It took just 3 hours and a private investigator's database access to discover the truth. Robert wasn't at any business conference. He was at the Setai Hotel on South Beach with Daniela Morales, his 28-year-old assistant. Their reservations showed they weren't coming back. One-way tickets to Buenos Aires departed the following morning. As I sat in our suddenly empty-feeling living room, surrounded by photos of our smiling faces from happier times, my phone lit up with a text from Robert. Working late again tonight. Miss you. I stared at the message, a strange calm settling over me. He didn't know that I knew. As far as he was concerned, he still had another day to play out his charade before disappearing forever with my life's savings. But Robert had made one critical miscalculation in his meticulous exit plan. He'd forgotten about the Horizon Fund. 3 years ago, my brother Marco had approached me about investing in his tech startup, a specialized cybersecurity firm developing enterprise protection systems. Robert had dismissed the idea outright, calling it another of Marco's pipe dreams. But I had seen the potential and secretly invested $75,000 of an inheritance from my grandmother that Robert didn't know about. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Last month, Horizon Security had been acquired by a major tech corporation. My initial investment was now worth just over $3.2 million, sitting in a private account established under my maiden name. I called Marco immediately. They emptied your accounts? He asked, shock and fury evident in his voice. All of it? Every penny, I confirmed. They're flying to Argentina tomorrow morning. I'll kill him, Marco said, not metaphorically. No, you won't, I replied, an idea taking shape. But you are going to help me make sure he gets exactly what he deserves. By midnight, the pieces were in place. Marco's connections in the cybersecurity world had provided everything we needed to track Robert's digital footprint. Email communications with Daniela dating back 14 months, hotel reservations, property inquiries in Buenos Aires, and, most importantly, the offshore account where he'd transferred our savings. He's been planning this for almost a year, Marco said, showing me the timeline they'd constructed. Setting up accounts, securing residency papers, researching non-extradition protocols. And Daniela? Marco hesitated. She's more involved than just being the other woman. Her name is on the offshore accounts too. They've been planning this together. The betrayal cut deeper, somehow. Not just an affair, but a partnership in theft. They had collaborated to steal my life while smiling to my face. "What do you want to do?" Marco asked. I studied the evidence they'd gathered, a cold clarity replacing the initial shock and pain. "Everything," I said simply. "I want to take everything." When Robert's alarm went off at 6 a.m., I was already sitting at the kitchen island, calmly drinking coffee. The shock on his face when he found me waiting was almost worth the entire ordeal. "Natalia, I thought you were still asleep," I supplied. "Or perhaps you hoped I wouldn't notice the missing $387,000 until you were safely in Argentina with Daniela." His face drained of color, hand frozen in the act of reaching for his pre-packed suitcase by the door. "I can explain—" "Save it," I interrupted, sliding a folder across the counter toward him. "Your explanations lost credibility somewhere around the time you booked those one-way tickets to Buenos Aires." He opened the folder with shaking hands, finding printouts of his emails with Daniela, their flight confirmations, property viewings in Palermo, Soho, and most damning, the offshore account. Statements showing our savings. "How did you find out you were stealing from me while sleeping with your assistant? That you planned to abandon me without a word after 15 years of marriage?" I took another sip of coffee. "That's not really the relevant question right now, Robert." "What do you want?" he asked, calculation replacing shock as he assessed his options. "Originally, to understand why. Now?" I smiled without warmth. "I just want you to check your phone." As if on cue, his phone chimed with an incoming email, then another, and another. "You should probably read those," I suggested. With visible trepidation, he opened the first message. It was from his offshore bank, confirming that the account had been frozen pending investigation into irregularities. The second was from American Airlines, confirming the cancellation of 2 first-class tickets to Buenos Aires. The third was from his company's legal department, requesting an immediate meeting regarding serious allegations of financial impropriety. "What have you done?" he whispered, scrolling frantically through the barrage of notifications now flooding his phone. "I've merely ensured appropriate consequences," I replied, standing to refill my coffee. "The FBI is particularly interested in the wire fraud aspects, though the tax evasion charges will likely carry the heavier sentence." His face contorted with fury and desperation. "You can't prove anything. Actually, we have quite an impressive digital trail. Your operational security was lacking." I glanced at my watch. "You should probably call Daniela. The authorities are likely at the Citay by now." As panic fully set in, Robert lunged for the door, only to find 2 FBI agents waiting on our front step, accompanied by Marco. "Robert Vega?" the senior agent asked, though it wasn't really a question. "We have some questions about certain financial transactions you've recently conducted." I watched from the doorway as they led him to their waiting vehicle, reading him his rights as neighbors emerged from their homes to witness the morning's unexpected drama. Marco stayed behind, giving me a concerned look. "You okay?" "I will be," I said, feeling the first genuine smile in days forming. "The Horizon money came through?" He nodded. "Fully vested as of yesterday. $3.2 million, minus taxes. You're set." "And the house in Barcelona?" The real estate agent confirmed it's still available. "Oceanfront, just like you wanted." As Marco's phone buzzed with updates about Robert's case, I walked back inside what had been our home for the last decade. The space already felt different, cleaner somehow, as if Robert's betrayal had been a physical presence now removed. I picked up a framed photo from our wedding day, studying the hopeful, trusting woman I had been. That woman was gone, replaced by someone harder but wiser. Someone who would never again mistake control for love or silence for loyalty. By evening, Robert and Daniela were in federal custody, their dreams of a luxurious new life replaced by the reality of pending criminal charges. Our savings had been secured, though it would take time to recover them fully through legal channels. but I wouldn't be waiting around for that process to complete. My flight to Barcelona left in 3 days. The first step toward a life rebuilt, on my terms, funded by the investment Robert had dismissed and forgotten. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just surviving betrayal, it's thriving because of it. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.